Honourable David Cunliffe.
Sat down in a hurry, and well he might, because on the subject of splits and divisions, let's call to mind the record between John Key and Bill English. And let's think about policies that matter to real New Zealanders. Here's the top of the list. Overseas Investment Office, Bill English says, open slather, bring in the buyers for Crayford Farms, let Sammy Wong and the others have their way with it. And guess what? John Key said, oh no, we'll be tenants in our own country. You can't do that, Mr. English. Let's talk about KiwiSaver, shall we? KiwiSaver that Bill English said was a rotten system that wasn't working, and now Bill English has been doing some polling, and he says it's time we had a policy. 2 years, and they've set up a committee, and they can't agree amongst themselves, Mr. Speaker. Tax policy. John Key said, let's make tax better, we won't have a GST. Bill English says, oh yes we will. We're putting GST up on the 1st of October and every New Zealander will suffer. You know, Bill English says the voters were right. Well, I don't know about that, but I do know that voters gave National a chance. Kiwis are fair-minded people. They said Labor had 3 turns. Give National a chance to see what they can do. And Mr. Speaker, you know what they found out? National promised them we'd catch up with Australia. We went backwards. $50 a week for the average worker and falling further behind. National said they would stop the brain drain across the Tasman. What have we got wrong? The June-on-June numbers, the number of Kiwis leaving has doubled on a year ago. Doubled, sir. National said they had a plan. Wrong. A plan, sir, is not a goal. A goal is not a strategy. A plan has a map. You know where you start, you know where you want to get to, you work out the milestones, and you have a compass to get you along the way. Is that what this national government's given New Zealand? They don't have a plan. They don't have any more than a series of slogans, and they are running from pole-driven fruitcakes to flip-flops. Flip-flops, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the last 3 months, 19,000 more New Zealanders have lost their jobs. Unemployment's risen to 159,000, and I want to talk about just 2 of them. One, both in my electorate, both who I've seen recently. Mrs. Yu worked for 14 years in a rest home in Epsom. 14 years. She was sacked without notice. She was rung up, told not to come to work because they ended up hiring a younger, newer person on a lower wage rate. She got a reference after 14 years. It had 4 lines in it after 14 years of hard work. That's one example. I'll give you another example. Mr. E lives in Kelston. He's a Polynesian worker at a factory in Penrose. He's an honest man. He has 4 children and a wife. He lost his job in the recession because this government didn't have a plan. And now he can't afford a state house, and they've moved in with his brother. 8 kids, 4 adults, 1 2.5-bedroom house, and that government has no plan. And there are 19,000 more New Zealanders like those 12. And Mrs. Yu, who's been sacked at will because this government's latest fad is firing workers and cranking down conditions. Mr. Speaker, the list of Nationals' reversals and short-term flip-flops has got so long it's a joke. They themselves called it a rolling maul, and it looks to me like a ruck-up. Catching up with Australia, the 2025 task force dead on arrival. Jobs summit, National Cycleway scaled back. 9-day fortnight cancelled in the middle of a recession. Budget 2009, deferred pre-funding superannuation and lied to New Zealanders about it. Created a $50 billion fiscal hole. Reduced stimulus and raised unemployment. Budget 2010 broke a promise and raised GST. And most New Zealanders are worse off next year when they face 5.9% inflation. The Overseas Investment Office that Bill English wants to liberalise and John Key wants to tighten. Who would know where they're going to come out, Mr. Speaker? Or the latest random walks on their map, mining national park, firing at will, so-called compulsory super, And here's the newest stuff, savings. 2 years on, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Time's expired. Honourable Ann Tolley.